Alrighty, it is Thursday afternoon, 1:50 p.m.-ish, and I wasn't planning on being here. I was kind of depressed, kind of tired, and shachar to the hotel, and then lounging around at home for like an hour, and then breakfast at Dalkamoni, eggs and bread and butter, and salad. The more lounging around at home, and had to take 2 dumps, and didn't want to do that at home. Don't have my own bathroom. Don't have my own home. And so the first time I thought I'd do my business and then go see if Lauren was home, but she wasn't. And then I went back home, and then like an hour later, I had to go to the bathroom again, and was thinking of maybe Chok or Zera Shimshon. From the parents suggest that I learn. They have the Vayeitzei Artscroll here from a bar mitzvah parsha, Vayeitzei. So I already looked at it a few times. It's complicated, and I don't really understand what it's talking about, but I didn't get anything better to do, so I figured why not. It's better than sitting in bed or lying in bed watching gangster TV, which is probably making my stomach reel just as much as the coffee and cigarettes and lack of love in my life. Yeah, Lauren says she's overwhelmed. I get it. I completely get it. If somebody was to put that much on me, I'd probably tell them to fuck off. I don't have a huge wealth of emotional caring available for anybody else. Anyways, so it starts off in Vayeitzei, so I don't even know why I'm trying to turn the page. I guess, yeah. So I don't really understand what this book is about, but he says right in the beginning that anybody who studies it is like guaranteed wealth, and I forget what else. I'm trying to find out where the exact phrasing is. Publisher's preface. I don't know. I seem to find it. Supposedly the author guarantees oh. Please, I beg you, plant this and reap reward in accordance with the ultimate kindness. The measure of reward is plentiful, and so too is peace from heaven. For those who do kindness graciously, your eyes shall see wise and intelligent children and grandchildren, and like olive shoots around your table. Your home will be full of all that is good. Neither wealth nor honor will cease from your descendants until the fulfillment of they will see the glory of Hashem and majesty of our God. You will raise a banner for the nations, symbol all the castaway children of Israel, speedily in our days. Amen. So apparently anybody who studies this will be guaranteed children, life, abundant sustenance. I guess that remains to be seen, but it's not like I have anything better to do. So I'm going to read the first paragraph in Hebrew, and then read the Artscroll translation commentary. And do the same for, I don't know, give or take a half an hour. Ain't got anything else to do. Lie in bed and watch mafia gangster movie TV, or go find some get-together for Sukkot, where I get to be another single guy in the crowd, searching for some female to keep him company. Not worth the effort. I already met thousands and thousands of women, and quite frankly, I'm willing to settle, but can't seem to find one that's willing to settle for me. Midrash Alkut says here, Shimoni Parshas Vayeitzei Remez Kuf Yud Zayin. Vayivka B'makom. This is Bereshis Chav Ches Yud Aleph. I think it's in the beginning of Parshas Vayeitzei. Or mitzvah parsha, I should know it, right? Yaakov Beersheva Il Charona. the next one. Bikesh lavor, Vanessa Olam Kosel Fana, Rabbanon Omri, Kiva Shemesh, Malamish Ishkia Karborko, Hamash Leva Inasa, Kadeo Dabrim Yakovina Betina, Moshlova Shamelach, Shabaitz Frakim, Mermelach Kabu, Habanosim, Shane Rotzel Dabrim Ovi Betina, Kachishkia Karborko, Ad Kalashona. So this is Jerush 1. The world's foundation stone had to be set before Yaakov built his family. So I think many people know about this thing called the Evan Shia, the foundation stone of the world, which is like on the Temple Mount. I believe it's in Al-Aqsa, but I could be wrong. And I always thought it existed from time immemorial, but according to this, it only came into existence in the time of Yaakov, Jacob, our forefather. So when Yaakov left his parents to go to Haran to seek a wife, the verse states he encountered the place and he spent the night there because the sun had set. He took the stones from the place that he arranged around his head and he lay down in that place. The following Jerush examines a midrash that states that this encounter Hashem and the world itself prevented Yaakov from going to Haran to build his family. First he had to stay in the place at which he had arrived long after his stones as a pillar there, which Hashem then made into the foundation stone of the world. Zera Shimshon explains why this had to happen before he went to Haran. Now, I remember from my bar mitzvah reading this parsha, and then, he put the whatever amount of stones there were around his head to be like a pillow. And then when he woke up, there was one stone. But thus was the Evan Shia, this was the foundation stone of the world, I didn't know. So, the Midrash explains the obstacles Yaakov faced on his way to build his family in Haran. Midrash Yalkut. The Midrash Yalkut Shimoni, Bereshis 1:17, expounds the words of Vayivka b'makom, he encountered the place as false. Bikesh lav, where Yaakov wanted to pass by the place he had encountered, Nasa olam kosel fanav, but the world became like a wall before him that prevented him from going farther. Rabbanon Omri, similar to the sages expound the words kiva of the phrase kiva hashemesh, because the sun had set as one word, so the verse reads kiba hashemesh, and kiba, which means to extinguish, so which means God extinguished the sun. Melamed Shishkia Kadosh Baruch Hu Hachamash Leva Inasa, this teaches the Holy One blessed He caused the sun to set sooner than it was supposed to. So he could speak to Yaakov Avinu in private in the dark of night. This can be compared to the beloved friend of a king. Shabbat Etzel Lefrakim comes to visit the king once in a while. Amar Melech, when he comes, the king says to his servants, Kabu Panasim, extinguish the lamps. Shani Rotz L'Dabarim Ovi B'tzina, because I wish to speak with my beloved friend in private. Likewise, when Yaakov arrived at the place, the Holy One blesses, he caused the sun to set sooner than it was supposed to, because he wished to speak with Yaakov in private. Ad Kalashona, the quote of the Midrash ends here. So we go back to the Hebrew. Here's the Daktik. My ichpat leila olam she'avar Yaakov alav. Ad she'nasa kosel fanav. Od lama Elohi Pel Kadosh Baruch Hu Tardema Alav Afil B'Yom K'mo Sh'asel Avram T'chsiv Tardema Nafal Avram V'chulu V'lama Davka Hu Tzrach L'Daber Imo B'tzina Ma Tzorach Mashal T'kamer Mashal Avo Ovo Shamel V'chulu. Back to the Artscroll translation and commentary. Zera Shimshon presents his problem with the Midrash. With this Midrash, here's the Daktik. We must examine. My ichbat leila olam she'avar Yaakov alav. Why it mattered to the world whether Yaakov passed by this particular place or not. Anjanasa kosel fanav, to the extent that a wall was erected before him, so to speak, to prevent him from going further. For Od, furthermore, even if Yaakov had to sleep there, it says here in the note that sleep was necessary for Yaakov to have his prophecy. After which he would place this stone there as a pillar. Okay. Why did the Holy One, blessed He, not cause deep sleep to fall upon him even in the day before the sunset, as he did to Avram? For the respect to Avram was written, as the sun was about to set, deep sleep fell upon Avram. Why did Hashem not do the same with Yaakov? Why did he have to speak to him specifically in private? Moreover, what need is there for the parable which says that this could be compared to the beloved friend of a king, etc.? What does the parable add? To explain this midrash, Zera Shimshon will compare what happened to Yaakov on his way to Haran with what happened to Adam at the time of creation. He begins this comparison with a midrash which states that when Yaakov placed the stone in that place, this represents the stage of completion of the world, completion of the creation of the world. Back to the Hebrew. V'Vayeitzei Rishon Nakti Maidi Isa Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer Perk Lamed Hey. Bigach Evan Asher Samar Ashav Me Asa Kadosh Baruch Hu Noto Regel Yimino V'Tibas Evan Ad Imkei Tahomos V'Osa Asa Snif Laaretz Kadam She'osa Snif Chipa V'Ich Nikris Evan Shazia Shmisham Utabar Arts Misham Nimtachas Kol Arts V'La Heichal Hashem Omed Shnemar V'Evan Azos Sasanti Matziva Iya Beis Elokim V'Chol Ad Kam V'Shono. Back to the Artscroll translation and commentary. Vayeitzei Rishon, in order to answer this thing first, addressing why it mattered to the world whether Yaakov passed his place or not. Nakti Maidi Isa Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer Perek Lamed Hey. We'll start with that which is stated in Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, chapter 35, expanding the verse that states, Vayikach Evan Samar Ashav. He took the stone that he placed around his head and set up as a pillar. Following this deed, what did the Holy One, blessed be he, do? Nota regel yimino, he extended his right foot, so to speak. V'tibas evan ad imkei tomos, he pressed the stone down to the deepest depths. V'osa osa snif laaretz, and made it support the earth. Ke'adam she'osa snif lipa, like a person who places a keystone in its place to support an arch, doorway, or ceiling. V'vichach nikreis evan zia, this rock is therefore called the foundation stone, shemisham utabar arts, because it is the center of the earth. Misham nimtachas kol arts, and from there the entire earth stretches out in all directions. It is upon this stone that the sanctuary of Hashem ends. Shnemer, as the verse states, this stone that I set up as a pillar shall become a house of God. Verse 22. Ad kan Lashono, the quote of the Midrash ends here. Back to the Hebrew. Niramikan. Shadayin le'nivra yisodos olam arashta. V'chein hayamag b'd olam shel yavar k'dei shal yidei yischazku yisorosov. Menasa kosa lefonav dermos lo sheim yisaki benasa asodos olam batel. Ve'in od derech lavar lefish lo yeh od olam. So back to the Artscroll. He says, near Mikan, from here. Now from here we see, Shadayin le'nivru yisodos olam arashta. Until Yaakov arrived at this place, the foundation of the world had not yet been created. V'chein hayamag b'd olam shel yavar. That is why it mattered to the world that Yaakov should not pass by this place till he set the stone there, so that the world's foundations would thereby be strengthened. The world therefore became like a wall before him. Thermoslo to hint to him, he did not stay and make its foundations. While the world would cease to exist, there would be no path on which to travel any further, since the world would not exist anymore. Back to the Hebrew. Onam, Ikasha Hakasha. Talama Davka Bishazo Hikbid Olam, Shasi Sadosov. Od Shnir Shim Lohaya Misaki Bishpamaz, Loya Od Efshal Asusam Bakasiraso, there's Shol. Lamazat Valmazat. So back to the translation. Having explained that the world stopped Yaakov from going further in order for its foundations to be fortified, Zera Shimshon raises a different question. Actually, if something is difficult, this is what's difficult. Why specifically at this moment, when Yaakov was passing by, did it matter to the world that its foundations being made? Moreover, from the Midrash it appears, if Yaakov had not been detained there and then, it would no longer have been possible to make the foundations of the world when he returned to Artscroll. It would already be too late. Why is this so, and for what reason is this so? Seems like the same question said in two different ways. Okay, V'yesh Lomer, Fish Yaakov Oz Haya Holich Lami Yud Beis Shvatim, Shem Kiyum Olam Mamash, Shem Keneged Yud Beis Mazolos, Yud Beis Chadashim, Yud Beis Tzruf Havaya, Midrash Tanchuma, Parshas Vayeitzei, my father's bar mitzvah parsha, Vayeitzei Shar Akriyishma, I don't know, Pei Chav Ches, V'im Hayamal Mid Ashvatim Kodem Shiniz Yasid Olam, I Efshar Lo Od. This Yasid, Shimatzinu b'Midrashei Razal, Parshas Bereishis, Rav Huna b'Shem Rabbi Elmar, Das Bro, Shabar Tzorchim Zonozov, Arkach Bro, Lachinami, Parshas Tazria, Imzocha Adam, Omrim Lo Ata Kedamta, L'chol Masi Bereishis, V'im Lav, Omrim Lo Yatush Kadmecha, Shilshul Kadmecha, V'chulu. just finish this one more line here before the next paragraph. Yesh l'dakti be'elu midrashim dema tzrat salomer b'nas brov o matol sladam im kadam lolum im lok ola kadam. Back to the Artscroll translation and commentary. Yesh lomar, we may explain as follows. V'yesh Yaakov az haya holich l'amidu be'shvatim, for Yaakov was on his way to establish 12 tribes. Sheim kiyum olam mamish would become the true reason for the existence of the world. Shem Keneged Yud Beis Mazolos, they correspond to the 12 constellations of the zodiac. Yud Beis Chadashim, the 12 months of the year. Yud Beis Trufei Avaya, and the 12 permutations of four-letter name of Hashem. Hence, the 12 tribes are in effect man's second chance to give creation meaning. But if Yaakov would have established the tribes first, Kodim Shnis Yasid Olam, before the world was supported on its foundations, Iyashalo Od Yasid, it would have been impossible for him to support it later. To explain why this is so, Zera Shimshon introduces two midrashim that discuss the significance of the sequence of events in the creation of the world and the making of man. Shematzinu, Midrash Rabbeinu Zichron Levracha, Parshas Bereshis, where we find the midrashim are sages of less memory in Parshas Bereshis as follows. Rav Huna b'shem Rabbi Amar, Rav Huna said in the name of Rabbi, B'das Bro, Hashem created the world with wisdom. Shabar Tzorchim Zonosov, that is, first he created the sustenance required by man, Vargach Bro, and then he created him. Al-Ghinami, Parsh Tazriya, likewise, the Midrash Parsh Tazriya says as follows: Mizach Adam Amr Lo, if a person is meritorious, we tell him, Atta Kadam Tul Chomas Bereshis, you came before all the works of creation. If a person is, note number 5 here, it says, if a person is meritorious, meaning that he places his spiritual needs and obligations before his physical needs and obligations, then we look at him from a spiritual perspective, and he is deemed to have come before all the works of creation, since the spiritual soul was created with the light of the first day of creation. Which is really weird, because I really thought the souls of the Jews came before the creation of the world, even before the creation of the Torah. Snakaba Raiso Bar Alma, maybe not before the creation of the world, but that God had consulted the souls of Jews whether or not to create the world. I think that's something in Kabbalah, but I don't know. Anyways, Vim Lav, Omrim Lo, but if he is not meritorious, then we tell him, Yatush Kal Mechal, the gnat preceded you. Shulshul Kal Mechal V'cholu, the earthworm preceded you. Though Shulshul is typically translated as diarrhea or throw up. Like when a person talks and rambles for no reason, it's Shulshul Apeh. The earthworm preceded you because man was created after all the animals on the 6th day of creation. But we must examine these midrashim. Bro, for what does it mean that Hashem created the world with wisdom, but creating man's nutritional needs first and then man himself? Why would it not have been with wisdom had he created man first and then his nutritional needs? Furthermore, what advantage was there for man to have come before the rest of the world or not to have come before? What does the order matter? To explain these last two midrashim and why the world had to be supported by the foundation stone before the 12 tribes were born, Zera Shimshon cites a halach discussion about items of one person that cause damage to items of another. It's an interesting question, because you do have the concept that Achron Klaviv, that whatever comes last is the most precious, most desirous. I don't know. But here he seems to be saying that if a person is meritorious, then he's the first, like the head is first. And if he's not meritorious, then he's last. Even earthworms and gnats and mosquitoes came before him. Okay, back to the original text. Matzinu machlokas b'basra, I guess it's Baba Basra. Daf Chafei. The Rabbanon Savri al Mazik Larchik Zatzmov, Rabbi Yossi Savar al Nizak Larchik Zatzmov, Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuelach, Rabbi Yossi. Well, Rabbi Yossi B'giri delay. Kilomar Divishlaman Dias Sailan Samach Laboro Shalvero, Agam Shara Shroshim Shal Ilan Kishi Sharshu Bakarka Yafsidu Babor. Kamar Rabbi Yossi Zana David Toshlo, Zechov Toshlo, Fish Vishash, and Idea Ilan Eno Shum Nezik Laboro Shalvero. Allah Nezik Ba Lachar Azman. Valim Yeh Davar Shtegef Ba Nezik Laboro, Kamashkaz Rashi Sham. Diver Maskal B'giri. Kamashkaz Vashulchan Aruch Shemishvat Sif Simen Kufno Hey. As Nikra Girei Delay. Mother Rabbi Yossi Shal Mazik Larchi Gazatzmo. This is starting to put some thoughts in my head that, if cigarettes cause that much damage, then I gotta distance myself from others. Of course, if they really do cause that much damage, how are they legally sold? And if they're causing cancer, then how are they legally sold anywhere in the world? Back to the Artscroll translation and commentary. Matzina Machlokas Basra Daf Chafei. We find a dispute in Bava Basra 25b as follows: To Rabbanan Savri, and sages hold that if, for example, the roots of someone's tree extend into his neighbor's property or ruin the walls of his neighbor's well, the damager must distance himself from the victim and remove the roots of his tree from his neighbor's yard. Vayeitzei, however, holds that the victim must distance himself from the damager, since the damager originally been entitled to plant his tree on his own property. The victim must move as well if he wishes to protect it. Amar Yehuda Amar Rav, Rav Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel. Amar Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel. Halach Rabbi Yossi, Lachem follows the view of Rabbi Yossi. The victim must distance himself. Nevertheless, Rabbi Yossi agrees with the sages that in the case of his arrows, meaning in cases where one's personal property causes direct and immediate damage to his neighbor's property, the damager must distance himself from the victim and not do anything that causes this kind of damage to his neighbor. This means to say as follows: it is understandable for Rabbi Yossi to say that the victim must distance himself from the damager to protect himself in the case where the damager planted a tree near the victim's well. For although the roots of the tree will eventually damage the well when they extend farther into the ground, Rabbi Yossi nevertheless says that this neighbor may plant the tree on his own property, and this neighbor may dig as well on his own property. For when the damager plants the tree, he is not doing any immediate and direct damage to the well of his friend. Rather, the damage comes later. But if the damage to his neighbor comes immediately, as Rashi writes there, and the Shulchan Aruch writes in Chosh Mishpat 125:4, as Nikr Giri delayed, then is called his arrows. And Mother Rabbi Yossi agrees, the damager must distance himself from the victim. I wish I had a clue it was flying, but I'd have to actually learn Bava Basra and Chosh Mishpat, at least on a superficial level, if not in depth, to know what he's talking about. Which apparently the Zera Shimshon know what he's talking about. Let's read one more page at least. Uvenidon didon adam va'olam him mazikim zeh. Shalom mazik is adam b'tanugav, shayin ra v'aliv chomeid v'chulu. Adam mazik is olam b'chatav v'shamu, shvishil zeh olam lokeh. Elish masha olam mazik adam nikr giri delay. Shteka sheish olam yesh nezek shayin eno b'shuza shadam. Take a ra v'aliv chomeid. Mash adam mazik olam hupa la'achar zman enam giri delay. Bavu dumya v'sharji ilan shmazikim bar achar zman. Shagash baruch hu erech hapayim l'fonim v'tol chatayim. Zera Shimshon applies the discussion to the damages that man causes to the world and the damages that the world causes to man. If cigarettes were the only thing getting in the way for me marrying Lauren, and I believe that we could be happy together, I believe I would quit. It's just the amount of problems they're causing me in my, bowel movements and the heat in the summer. I just don't have faith that in the long term it's going to work out. Until she marries me as I am, and, gives me a few years and I see that things are working out, why wouldn't I quit for her? She'll obviously become more important to me than the cigarette. They've been like my best friend for the last 24 years. Yeah, they got me in trouble sometimes, but they've been consistently there for 24 years. It's like air. Air is my absolute best friend. Food and water, sleep. And she wants cigarettes gone. I want something that she obviously can't provide, that I don't think any human being can provide. Torah says, I've already done the abandoning my parents' part numerous times, and they've pushed me out the door numerous times. Just never done the Yid Bak B'Ishto thing. never been financially secure enough to do that. I do not want to live on the street married. I mean, it might be better than being single, living on the street, but still, it's misery. No, v'nidon. Now, in our context, with respect to the creation of the world and the making of man, there is a similar phenomenon because Adam v'olam mazikim zeh. The man and the world damage each other. The world damages man with its seductive pleasures, because the eye sees things that are forbidden to be seen, and the heart desires things that are forbidden to be desired. It's Rashi Bamidbar 1539, which presumably is on Shema. And the paragraph talking about tzitzis. That the heart desires things, the eye sees things, and the heart wants things. And without seeing it, you probably wouldn't want it. And once you've seen it, you want it. It's like walking down the street and seeing 18-year-old girls, and it's like, yeah. But then, you actually spend time with one particular woman, you find like, wow, it feels so much better to be with you than look at all the eye candy in the world. If only I could get, your personality in that body, then I could have the eye candy and the great feelings. But maybe it doesn't work that way. Maybe it's because, the lack of the eye candy, it's more of that home feeling. I remember at least one lecture was talking about why is sex so desirous. It's not the ejaculation, it's the being with her that feels like coming home. To a certain extent, I've said this before, like a 4-year-old getting into bed with his mother, or father, but, mother really. Whether he had a nightmare or just wanted to cuddle. A certain sense of being home. But I guess that depends if the woman's got motherly instincts or if she's not. Of course, if she has motherly instincts and she doesn't want the guy to do things that are going to be bad for him. Man too damages the world with his sins and depravity. Because the world is plagued as a result of his evil deeds. Quotes here, Avos 5:8 and Zera Shimshon, chapter 1. I guess both of those came out before him. I don't know. Well, Avos definitely. Zera Shimshon, I don't know. Last night, Adon Shlomo was saying that the Zohar is called the Gemara on Pirkei Avos. I don't know what that means, but sure, why not? I don't know. Why would I care? Well, there's a difference, though, between these damages. For that which the world damages man, Nikra delay, is considered its arrows. Since damage was there as soon as the world was there, this is because the eyes are not in a person's control. Take it and he immediately sees things that are forbidden to be seen. So when I quoted looking at 18-year-old girls, that's not necessarily forbidden, especially if they're fully dressed. So it's a rabbinic injunction not to look at, not modestly dressed women. Probably biblically forbidden to look upon married women desirously. Since the damage was there as soon as the world was there. Because the eyes are not in the person's control. Take a he immediately sees things that are not forbidden to be seen. But in the heart immediately desires things that are forbidden to be desired. By contrast, damage which man damages the world comes only after some time has passed and is not immediate. Delay, and thus not considered as arrows. On the contrary, the damages with which man damages the world are like roots of a tree, which damage the neighbor as well, only after some time has passed and they have had a chance to extend onto his property. Similarly, man's sins like the roots of a tree that do not cause immediate damage, because the Holy One, blessed He, has the attribute of slow to anger before him, and delays the detrimental outcome of sins until he has given the sinners a chance to see if they will repent. It's Rashi to Shmos 34:6. Would be Lamed Daled Vav. And Zera Shimshon elaborates this analogy further as it affects the sequence of creation. And we're already at the 30-minute mark, so we'll do the next page and call it a session. אם היה נברא אדם תחילה קודם בריאת העולם, לא היה יכול לברוס אחר כך עולם. מפני שהעולם היה בא להזיק אדם תקף ונקרא גירי דילי. ומודה רבי יוסי בזה שחי ומזל להרחיק עצמו, אמנם אם נברא עולם קודם, אז יכול לברוא אדם שאינו מזיק לאדם בגירי דילי. והאדם אינו יכול לומר לאדם שנברא קודם לו, אתה מזיקני בגירי דילך, וסליק הזיקך ממני, שכבר היה עולם קודם שנברא אדם. הרי זה דומה למה שכתוב בריב"ש, סימן שכ"ב, הוא בבייס יוסף סימן קנ"ה, על ראובן שזכה בחורבו של האבקר, ובנה בו בתים וכו', ואחר כך בא שמעון וזכה מן האבקר כנגדו וכו' בעין שם. So, Vim Haya Nivra Adam Tchila. Now, if man had been created first, Kodem Brias Olam, before the rest of the world was created, the world would not have been built, but could not have been created afterwards. Man had been created first, the world couldn't have been created afterwards. Because the seductive temptations of the world would then come as immediate damage to man, but Nikra Giri delay, as they're called arrows. I don't know. I mean, if the arrows are shooting, and then you put something in that location where the arrows are shooting, it doesn't matter if you can. Oh, you can put a man into a dangerous situation, but you can't put the dangerous situation into the man. Both seem kind of messed up. I don't know. Mother Rabbi Yossi Bazet, and as stated earlier, Rabbi Yossi agrees with the scenario. The damage right of the world must distance itself from the victim, i.e. man. The world thus cannot be created after man. However, if the world was created first, then man could be created afterwards, even though he will eventually damage the world. Because he does not damage the world with his arrows, meaning that his damage to the world is not direct and immediate. And when he is created afterward, is faced with the worldly seductive temptations, one man cannot say to the world that was created before him, you damage me with your arrows, so remove your damaging elements from me, because the world with its damaging elements had already been rightfully there, before man was created. Hence the law in this kind of scenario where the world is created first and man is created later is like the case of which Rivash writes in Simon 322, who Vayeitzei Yosef Simon Kufnun, which is cited in Vayeitzei Yosef Chosh Mishpat 155-54. The same one that was quoted earlier? Nope. 4 was 155-4, and this is 155-54. Reuven Shazacha B'churba shall have Ger, but Reuven acquired an ownerless lot. Vanav Abatim and built houses on it. Arkach by Shimon, and afterwards Shimon came with Zachov min Hefker Knegdo Chulu, and acquired an owner's lot opposite Reuven, and also built houses on it. Rivash rules in such a case that even if Reuven's property causes immediate damage to Shimon's, Shimon cannot have Reuven's damaging elements removed because Reuven was there first. Vayin Sham, see there, here too, even though the world caused immediate damage to man, man cannot have the world's damaging elements removed because the world was there first, creating the world first, and then man thus guaranteed that both may coexist. With this halachic analogy, we may now understand what the Midrash means when it says that there is an advantage for men to be considered as having been created before the rest of the world. I don't see it. And if God is good, I mean, it's one thing to test us to see if we're with God. It's another thing to say that the world is necessarily damaging us. I mean, that doesn't seem like a good God to me. It's one thing, you create a world and it's okay, there are easier challenges, there are harder challenges, there are easier times, there are, harder times. But to say that the world is necessarily damaging us, that's like sadistic. What kind of God creates a sadistic world and then puts man in there? I guess it, goes with the Tanya saying that in this world only the evil thrives. Anyways, hope that was somewhat entertaining, somewhat educational. Thanks for watching if you did. Peace out on this Thursday, Chol Moed Sukkos, 5786, October 9th, 2025.